welcome to Stillspeakpod. This is an update on the Gabby Petito case. I typically do these at night. I didn't get to it yesterday. I had too much going on yesterday to do such. It is now 8 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday the 28th. And so I'm going to do an update for yesterday. And while I do that, I will be obviously adding in my views and thoughts and commentating on some of the things that we're going to be discussing. It was announced yesterday morning that the FBI has taken over the search investigation of Brian Laundrie and that the Northport police would still be giving personnel as needed to the FBI. And they said that they were going to be doing targeted searches rather than widespread, and this was based off intelligence. And the helicopters that were in the air, they did see them out there, but they couldn't find anywhere in the reserve where they were actually physically searching. And this has been just, oh my goodness. I feel like we've been watching, remember when everybody was watching that giraffe? I think the giraffe's name was April, and everybody was waiting for it to give birth, and you would tune in just to watch this giraffe, but like nothing was happening. And it's kind of been that way since last Tuesday, so about a week ago. It's been very slow. Things have calmed down a great deal in the groups. There is just this weird silence as far as developments are concerned, but we did have a lot of things that happened prior to it going silent. You know, on Sunday of last week, we had Gabby's body that had been found, and we were told about it, which was heartbreaking, but a miracle at the same time that she was even found so quickly. And then on Monday, we were witnessing as the FBI swarmed the Laundrie home and executed a search warrant on the home. And then on Tuesday was Gabby's autopsy, and we were told the manner of death was homicide, but yet we're still waiting for the cause of death. So there was a lot that happened in a short period of time, and prior to that, it was just going. And then once Wednesday rolled around, it all just slowed down, and we were getting footage of them out in the Carlton Reserve, them searching around, and we also had footage of the Laundrie home, but really nothing was happening, right? We were just looking at either trees or a house, just waiting for something, anything to happen. And that's why on Thursday, when the parents left the home to travel to Orlando for a meeting, everybody was like, oh my God, they left the house. Because it was like the only thing that actually had happened that was significant enough to talk about. And so it was just really quiet, and we're all just sitting on the edge of our seats, you know, talking about how, is he dead? Is he not dead? Is he surviving out there? Is he really in the Carlton Reserve? Etc., etc. And Wednesday went by, Thursday went by, Friday went by, Saturday went by. And so, yeah, this turned into just like we're watching nothing. Or that's how, you know, it felt. And on Sunday, there was a slight development. There was other minor things that happened, but the slight development was that the FBI went to the Laundrie home, that I told you about this already, and they collected DNA. They were only there for a few moments, and the lawyer for the Laundrie family said that the FBI had requested it, so this sounds like something they had talked about prior to them showing up. So, you know, it's just been frustrating, right? It's been frustrating. It's excruciating to watch because there's nothing really happening. And one of the things that happened on Sunday was that, it was actually Saturday, was that Dog the Bounty Hunter had went to the Laundrie home, and there was mixed reviews on what people felt about this. Half the people said he was, you know, seeking attention. Others said that, you know, he may actually find Brian. And so there was this big split on how people felt about Dog the Bounty Hunter now involving himself in this case. Well, yesterday, his daughter said that she could confirm that he was following a lead in the case, a concrete lead. I don't remember her exact wording, but one of the reporters with WFLA which is one of the big stations that have been covering this case, did tweet out that he also was in contact with a member of Dog's team and that he was on his way to a location where he was following one of these tips. And then it was clarified that he's not going to the Carlton Reserve. It was another location. And then it came out that it was a campground and what have you. So this was developing over a period of time last night. And then we actually got a small interview from Dog explaining what he found at the reserve. I'm going to play you what Dog said, and then we're going to talk about it briefly.
We're down here in Florida in Fort DeSoto. It's almost dark. So we had a very good lead come up today that he was down here in this park not very far away. We checked our lead out. It is confirmed. The parents were down here 2 times. It was September 1st through the 3rd and September 6th through the 8th. They registered to stay at this park. They were registered, went through the gate. They're on camera. They were here, and they did enter. They did come here. Allegedly, what we're hearing is 2 people left on the 8th, 3 people came in on the 6th, and 2 people left on the 8th. I think he's been here for sure. So, there's a lot of little islands around the area where we're at that he could get to on a canoe. We talked to the caretakers today of the islands. They said he could be out here, that he was here for sure, not over in the swamp.
Listen, Dog has a lot of knowledge and experience, and I'm not going to say that I don't believe him. He might actually really have something here. The issue that I'm running into, because I do like to be factual, and I am somebody who's going to believe more what the police are telling us versus what, a source is saying or a witness, okay? And I actually find it kind of funny because a lot of people are quick to believe sources and rumors and witnesses, but they're not as quick to believe what the police have said. And I said on this channel many, many times, and I'm going to say it again, the police have said multiple times now, they saw Brian in the home when they went there on first contact, which would have been the 11th. That's what they said. They said it twice. And then when they were at the Carlton Reserve, they were asked about, was he at that home? And they said, we 100% believe he was in that home at some point. Okay? So this is what they've said. And I'm just telling you what they said. You can choose to believe it or not to believe it. So I think Dog is trying to go with this idea that, maybe they dropped him off at this campground when they had went camping, and he's actually been gone since that weekend, which would have been Labor Day weekend. Now, we did know that they went camping. A neighbor told us that they saw them leaving on a 3-day camping trip. They didn't mention 2 trips. They mentioned only 1. And I did process of elimination and said it had to probably be the first weekend after he got back, because that one made the most sense. Now he's saying that they went twice. It was actually once that first weekend after he got back, and then a second time. And both times was 3 people, but on the second one, 3 people went in and only 2 came out. Okay. I don't know what to make of this. It's possible that the police were wrong. I don't know why they would say several times that they saw him in the home if that was not the case. And there has been a lot of speculation on if Brian's been gone for way longer than the parents have even said. And I do want to note here that the lawyer also said for the family that he spoke to Brian on the phone in the presence of his parents. Now, you can say he's lying, but the problem with that is basically you would be saying that he's helping hide him, if that's the case, that he lied to protect him so he could hide. And I just want to ask yourself, what would be his motive for that? Why would he risk his career and all of that to lie and hide and aid this young kid? I don't see that being the case. I don't see the reason for that. When asked, he could have simply said that he was not going to discuss that. And he said that he did speak to him. He didn't have to say that. So now we have the lawyer saying that, and we have the police saying they saw him. But now we have this information from dogs saying that he might actually have been gone longer and maybe had been left behind. Now, prior to her being reported missing, there's nothing wrong with them going camping, right? Because at that time, nobody knew, right? So it's not abnormal for a family to go camping. And if this family didn't actually know what actually happened, and meaning Brian lied to them, then it wouldn't be, again, abnormal for them to go camping while she's missing. That, because they wouldn't have known that she was either missing or dead at this point if they had been lied to. So that's not abnormal. Now, I will say that there is this possibility also that he might not have been left behind that second trip, but that may have been where he went. And I say that because with the Carlton Reserve, there's two entrances. There's one on the Northport side, one on the Venice side, and we've seen them over the last week spending some time on each side. And when you get to the other side of Carlton Reserve, from his home to the Venice side, it goes into, there's all these other campgrounds there. And then there's a walk, obviously, or a traveling time from that location to Fort DeSoto. Now, in a car, it's an hour and 15 minutes. That's not that far. And Fort DeSoto is a bunch of islands, when you look at the map, off the coast of West Florida. So there's a possibility here that he did go into the Carlton Reserve, right, the day that the parents claimed that he did. And it's possible that he's worked his way to the other side and then somehow got from there up to Fort DeSoto Park. This would take him a significant amount of time. But that being said, I have to go back and remind you that when he left on that Tuesday, there was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And Friday was when we found out he was even gone. Saturday is when the search began in the Carlton Reserve. And they searched Saturday and they searched Sunday. So he had 4 days head start to walk. And then he had 2 days they were searching the Carlton Reserve. And if he was already on the other side of the Carlton Reserve, almost out of the Carlton Reserve by then, he had 2 more starts for those days. And then they didn't search for him on Monday, so add another day. And then they searched in Carlton Reserve on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so on and so forth. So, today is technically two weeks since his parents alleged that he left their home and went to the Carlton Reserve. So he's had 2 weeks to make his way to Fort DeSoto Park. So there is a possibility that he did go there or is there because it's familiar to him. Because if he went twice with them, that tells me they went there many times before. It was their normal campground that they probably liked. Gabby had a picture on her Instagram where they were in the Fort DeSoto. It was a fort, and Brian's standing behind bars, which is kind of ironic. So they've been there before, and he's familiar with it. And what better place to go than someplace that you're familiar, right? And if you're on the run and you know that police are going to be looking for you, it is probably best to constantly be moving and not just sitting in one spot. At the same time, you don't want to go out all willy-nilly into the public because so many people know and recognize your face, especially in this area of Florida because everybody's looking for you. However, it is still COVID, and most of Florida does not really abide by any guidelines anymore. Doesn't mean that there aren't people who still do. So he can seriously be out there right now just walking around with a mask on, a hat, a hoodie, whatever, and you wouldn't recognize him. Absolutely not. You would only see, the eyes and tattoos on his hands. And as long as he's holding his hands or hiding them, you wouldn't have no idea that it was Brian Laundrie. So I don't know what this is going to develop into. There was a lot of people who, said they listened to the police scanner last night, and it seemed to be there was a manhunt, but I don't know about that because it was dark outside, and it was kind of more of a rumor. I don't know how this is going to unfold. I don't know if what Dog has is concrete. And I really don't care that he's a part of the search, and I don't care what his motive is. I say, you know what, if it was my daughter, I would want help from every single person I can get help from, no matter what their motive is for, right? So if he's doing this for attention, great. If you find Brian laundry, right? I don't care. Get all the attention you want, as long as you help. So I think what he's doing is a good thing. I just hope that it's not misleading the investigation, and I hope it's not misleading the public or giving the public hope until it's further confirmed, where we have something a little bit more concrete to go off of here, like possibly footage showing the parents entering and then leaving without Brian. I'm going to wait for that. I suggest everybody else waits for that before you get all hyped up and excited that this might be it and today's the day. And you know what? It may be the day. We have to wait and see. And I want to get back to the parents in a few moments, but first I want to tell you that today at 1 p.m., the Petito and Schmidt lawyer, Richard Stafford, said that there will be a family press conference from New York at his law firm, so the media will all be there. I'm going to guess that the family just wants to express their gratitude for the help and support that the public has given them through this awful time. There might be information they want to share. I'm not sure. I'm not really... I can't really think of anything that they want to share that they can share because it's still an active investigation. So I'm thinking it's more of a gratitude type press conference. So you definitely want to tune into that 1 p.m. Eastern time. You can probably just Google or go on Facebook and type in Richard Stafford lawyer or Gabby Petito press conference, and you'll probably pick it up right away. There'll probably be a ton of lives with this press conference, and of course you can always see it later as well. So that's one thing that I want to talk about. And then the other thing was that yesterday during one of the live feeds, somebody brought flowers to the home of the Laundries, and they knocked on the door and they didn't come to the door, and then somebody on Twitter had said that they sent the flowers because they wanted to start this movement of flowers being sent in Gabby's name, and they wanted everybody to join in to basically fill up the entire front yard of the Laundrie family. And while I understand this person's motive, you know, I don't really think there was any reason to do that. And I say that because, like, they're not going to be touched by it. They're not going to say, oh, you know what, now all of a sudden I'm going to cooperate or speak to the public or anything of that nature. I just don't know what the end game was besides having a bunch of flowers in the front yard. And it did spark a big argument in groups because, you know, half the people were like, that's such a waste of money, which I have to agree because flowers are so freaking pricey if they're just going to end up in the garbage. And the other half was like, no, you know, I love this idea, and they joined in doing it. And so, what do you know? All these bouquet of flowers started showing up. Not like a whole lot, but they did. They started coming to the home, and this delivery person brought them to the home, and she started to unload them outside the home, and an officer was there and told her that it's not allowed and that any flowers are to go to the Gabby Petito Memorial outside of City Hall. I felt bad for the delivery person because she was just doing her job, and people didn't like that the police officer said that had to be at City Hall. But it seemed to me that the Laundries probably got wind of this or heard of this and told the police they don't want these flowers on their property. And then after that, another bouquet came, and that person was actually able to leave it at the end of the lawn where a makeshift memorial has been started for Gabby. There's a picture of her out there and some little trinkets and then now flowers. And the reason why she was able to leave it there was because when she showed up, the police officer had left. So I don't know if he removed it when she went back or not. And I can't blame the Laundries for not coming outside for the original flower delivery, because just prior to that, there was two individuals, one of which claims to know Gabby's father side of the family, and said that he comes to the house because it's important and personal to him. And he was standing outside the house with somebody else, a female, and they had blowhorns, and they were out there starting very early this morning at 8 a.m., yesterday morning at 8 a.m., screaming into these blowhorns. And I understand the passion, and I love the passion. I think everybody wants justice for Gabby, and they want to have their voices heard, and I'm all for protesting. I'm all for that. I'm also, at the same time, considerate. And so you have to think that these people have neighbors. They have people who are getting up for work, people who are trying to get their kids off to school, people who may have babies who are still sleeping, or people who are working from home because of COVID. And you have these people outside, and it was loud because one of the neighbors several houses down recorded it, and it was loud as can be. So again, this made a split opinion type thing. Some people were like, hell yeah, I do it, blah blah blah, and the other people were like, oh my god, this is ridiculous, why are you doing this? And I have to agree, why are you doing this? Again, they're not going to just be like, oh, okay, Mr. Blowhorn Man, let me come out and speak to you and tell you everything. I don't think that type of pressure really helps. All it does is kind of interrupt everybody around you, okay? Now, pressure as far as the public and seeing memorials and having large-scale protests where everybody's kind of coming together in a much quieter way to have their voices heard. Okay. And also, the time of day is, of course, not the greatest because they were out there at 8 o'clock in the morning. So, maybe midday, maybe in the evening. I don't know. I don't know the right answer to this. They weren't doing anything illegal. If they were, the police would have made them leave. I just don't think that it's fair. And you shouldn't go off the assumption that everybody in the neighborhood, just because they dislike the Laundries and want the Laundries to help the police, that everybody in this neighborhood wants you in their neighborhood doing what you're doing. I just don't think that's fair. So, that being said, a lot of the things that they were saying were accusations. That was, you are not cooperating, you are hiding him, you are aiding him, blah, 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 blah. Lots and lots of accusations. Very bold, strong accusations with little to no proof or evidence to support the accusations. And I do want to get to that, but I'm going to tell you a few more updates, and then I want to talk about those accusations because it's weighing on me big time, and I just need to say it. Several companies and individuals have said that they would give a reward for any tip that leads to the whereabouts of Brian Laundrie, and some of those sponsors are Buhoff Law Firm, Upchurch, Sean Whelan, MJ Morning Show, Parents of Gabby Petito, and Neighbors of Gabby Petito. And the reward now totals $170,000 for any tip that gets Brian captured. Now, of course, this is if everybody keeps their word and actually gives the money. So, yeah, it's a lot of money, $170,000 to find this man. And also, the Moab police chief has taken a family leave from the department. And this sparked great interest because obviously the Moab City Police have come under great scrutiny about the domestic incident between Gabby and Brian on 8/12, and an investigation is being launched into if it was handled properly. And so a lot of the headlines were like, oh my God, the police chief, during this time of scrutiny has taken a leave. Now, this leave can be for anything, right? But they're connecting the two. It could be because of this investigation. He might be like, I don't even want to deal with this. I'm taking a leave of absence, and then he might eventually resign. We don't know, right? He took a family medical leave. So that could be COVID related for all we know. But this is how the headlines were running this. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with that. And then the Laundrie's family lawyer said in a statement to the reporters, Chris and Roberta Laundrie do not know where Brian is. They are concerned about Brian and hope the FBI can locate him. The speculation by the public and some in the press that the parents assisted Brian in leaving the family home or in avoiding arrest on a warrant that was issued after Brian already had been missing or for several days is just wrong. So a few things to note here. I find it interesting that he says that the parents hope that the FBI find Brian. Now, the FBI was originally looking for Brian because he was filed as missing by his parents. Now they're looking for him because he has a warrant, an arrest warrant. Okay, he had the arrest warrant for the credit card fraud just last week, which was also a big development in early of last week. And so these parents know that if the FBI finds him, at minimum, he's going to be arrested for these charges, right? So I think it's interesting that they want the FBI to find him, right? And so another thing is that a lot of people really need to learn to read slower, and they also need to listen more carefully, because 9 times out of 10 what they think they read or heard is not what they read or heard. So, for example, here, I'm going to read it to you one more time. It says, speculation by the public and some in the press that the parents assisted Brian in leaving the family home or, keyword, or in avoiding arrest on a warrant that was issued after Brian had already been missing for several days is just wrong. Why am I saying or? Well, a lot of people were like, oh my God, he's saying they only didn't help him after his warrant. That means that they were helping him before the warrant. No, that's not what it's saying, because there's an or there. So the first part of the sentence is saying, speculation by the public and some of the press that the parents assisted Brian in leaving the family home. That's one part. Or that he is helping avoid arrest on a warrant that was issued after he went missing. They're not saying that they didn't help them prior to this warrant. There's an or there. So that's key, people. Please read carefully and slowly. Because this lawyer is not going to slip up or say something that's going to incriminate his clients. He's a professional, he knows what he's doing, and he's not going to do that. So that or in the middle of the sentence is key, because he's covering what happened prior to the warrant and after the warrant. So that's that. And so I need to go on a little bit of a rambling here, a little bit of a rant, and I need you to bear with me. I also want you to breathe and not jump down my throat, because I know what I'm going to say is not a popular opinion. And I think that if you just hear me out all the way through, you might say, you know what, that's possible. You might change your view or opinion on something, and it's okay to change your view or opinion on something if you hear something that seems plausible, okay? We don't know the extent, there's no evidence at all to know any type of extent that the parents knew what happened or are involved or that they aided and are helping him after the fact. There's nothing. I know that on first sight, some of their behavior might not make sense. Some of it is alarming. Some of it you think is circumstantial to the possibility that they have been, just like you think that most of the things that Brian has done, which is all circumstantial, leads to the fact that he killed Gabby, okay? And what's interesting to me is that in most of these cases, people are very quick to make accusations on a suspect even before the person is, there's any evidence to show that. But in this case, for some reason, people were really willing to give Brian the benefit of the doubt while Gabby was still missing, that somehow this was some big misunderstanding and maybe she's just out there living in a tent and everything's okay. They wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. And it's fascinating to me because I had to pause for a moment and tell my child to stop yelling. Some of you can relate to that. So it's fascinating to me because I'm not seeing that same thought towards the laundry parents, okay? Nobody seems to really want to give them any type of benefit of the doubt. They think that, Brian came home and he was like, Mom and Dad, I killed her, and her body's in Wyoming, and I don't know what to do. And they're like, oh, son, come here. Let me give you a hug. It's okay. It's totally fine that you killed her. No worries. We're going to handle this. Everything's going to be okay. Let me get you some water. We'll go and get you some supplies. We're going to set you up, and you can just go and hide and take off, and it'll be okay. Don't worry. They think that these parents somehow were told the truth, when I think it's more likely that he also lied to them. And he had some sort of story that was believable to them, and that they might not have known his involvement in anything until he fled, or until her body was located in Wyoming. So, hear me out, okay? I'm going to share what I think actually happened. I'm not saying this is what happened. It might be wrong. I'm just saying this is one possibility that it could be, and it's my personal opinion. I think it's more likely that Brian came home and he had a story that was not the truth. And it was something to the effect of, we decided to take a break, we broke up, something along those lines. And he told them that he came home with the van, and that she decided to fly home from that area to her family in Long Island while they're on this break. And if that's what happened, the parents really had no reason to not believe that, okay? It doesn't sound like these two families were that close. They just had been in each other's presence a few times. So they might just be like, okay, well, she's in Long Island, right? And they just went about their normal lives. They went on this camping trip, etc., etc. So to them, Gabby's in Long Island. She may or may not come back. We don't know. We got to see how their relationship unfolds. And it might be that at the point that Gabby's parents were contacting them, that the reason why they did not reply to this is because they were blindsided by the fact that Gabby was missing. And they were confused because Brian told them that she was in Long Island, and now they're calling saying they don't know where she is. And so they might have went into panic mode and basically freaking out and going to Brian and saying, Brian, you said she went to Long Island, but her parents are calling us and saying that she's not there. Like, what the heck's going on? And he might have been like, I don't know, Mom and Dad. I mean, that's where she went. So maybe she went missing from Long Island. I don't know. And then maybe they didn't end up calling back the parents because they didn't know what they were going to say or what have you, because they're like, we don't know where the heck she is. And they got concerned that maybe Brian was going to end up being accused of something. And so they kind of went into damage control, like, oh my gosh, we got to make sure that they don't try to say that you're involved in this and for some reason. And their concern turned to, we got to protect Brian, okay? And you can hate them for that, but it's their son, right? Most people would want to protect their child. There might have been a concern. It's not to say that they didn't care about Gabby, but they really didn't have information to even give her family, even if they did call back, because they don't know where she is. Brian said she was with you guys, and now you're saying she's missing. So, and then when the police showed up the next day, they already had a lawyer because her parents told them in text, we're going to call the police. So they got their lawyer and they said, here, call our lawyer. And that might have been what happened. So at this point, they were probably protecting him in the sense of, we got to make sure that they don't somehow try to say that he's involved. He is her significant other or was her significant other, and this could get ugly. And then it was only 3 days before Brian took off. And it might be that at that point when he left, that the parents were like, oh shit, where did he go? And then they waited a day, hoping he'd come back, and he didn't. And then they waited another day, and then they hoped he'd come back, and he didn't. And at this point, they might have told their lawyer, who then advised them to call the police, because that's what his job is to do, is to say, hey, you need to tell him this. And that's when they called the police in. And then on Sunday, her body was found. So when her body was found, that confirmed that she never went to Long Island. She was left dead in Wyoming. So now that might have been the moment that they had the realization that he had to be involved. They might have already at this point, because he fled, considered that he's involved. But the moment that her body was found in Wyoming and not in Long Island, that might have been the moment they were like, oh my God, he had to have done this because he was with her in Wyoming and he came back. He told us that she went to Long Island, and meanwhile she's been dead in Wyoming this whole time. Okay? And I want to point out here that the parents had the search warrant done on their home, and when they did that, they pulled the parents out of the home, they put them in a van for a little while, it wasn't long at all, and then they brought them back inside. And I said that it's possible that the FBI had went in the home, they cleared one room, and then they told them they can come back inside so they didn't have to be outside with all the reporters, and they continued doing a search on the home. And there was a period of time where they were in this home for 8 hours, the FBI. And so we don't know what transpired in that home during that period of time while they were searching, and if the parents were speaking to detectives about Brian's involvement with Gabby's disappearance and death. We don't know that. The police have not said anything, and just because they haven't said that they cooperated with them during this warrant doesn't mean it didn't happen. They're going to not tell us that, right? So there is this possibility they are cooperating, and we just don't know that they are. And also, when the FBI requested DNA, it doesn't appear that they had to get a warrant to get it. So it sounds like the parents are cooperating with the DNA because they gave it to the FBI. So that's a good sign that there may be some cooperation here. And I'm saying all of this, and that was my opinion of theory and what possibly happened, because you have these people outside with these blowhorns, right? And in the groups going on and on and on about the parents, and making all these accusations that have no evidence to support it, except for odd behaviors that they've done. And meanwhile, we don't even know if they're cooperating. Like, one of the things they were screaming through the blowhorn was, you need to cooperate. You need to tell. You need to talk to them about Gabby. Well, they might have. Why are you assuming that they haven't? Again, there was this 8 hours in their home that they could have been telling them everything Brian told them, for all we know. So I want to make this point, and I know it's going to upset people. I know this isn't a popular opinion, but that's okay, because if I wanted to be popular, I would come on here every 5 minutes with every rumor, every witness, every source, every nonsense possible to get as many views and clicks, okay? Like every other true crime channel is doing. I'm seeing them going live every 5 minutes, just, running with every single possible thing that they see on the internet. So, I could join that bandwagon, right? I could easily come on here and tell you guys all, like, oh my God, he was spotted in Alabama. Dude, look at this. And make a whole video on it, right? But I'm not going to do that. And so I'm not going to withhold a popular opinion because I know that people aren't going to like that. It's okay. I can sit on here and go, the parents are garbage, the parents are this, they're eating him, they're murderers too, they're this, they're that. If I wanted to be popular. But I'm going to go with the unpopular opinion because that's who I am. So, and it's something I want to point out and I want you to consider and think about and not be so quick to dismiss it as, give me a break. They're definitely involved. If Brian lied to his parents, got them to get him a lawyer and manipulated them and then took off and has put them through what he's putting them through with the whole world looking at them awfully and accusing them and camping outside their home, etc. They are victims of Brian, okay? And you might not like that because you think of a victim in a different way. Like, her parents are victims, obviously, and it's definitely not the same as what her parents are in the story. Theirs is 100 times worse, if not more than that, right? They lost their daughter, and the person possibly responsible for this has taken off. And they want justice for their daughter. But it's a victim in a different sense, okay? Because if he did all this and destroyed their lives and turned their entire lives upside down in their retirement years when they thought they could just go camping and relax and do all this stuff, and now they, can't even leave their home without, people following them and yelling at them and screaming at them, they are victims of Brian's actions. And I say this because I have spoken to somebody whose child was the killer, and it was really sad to see how that family did not get any sort of sympathy for the fact that they were also victims in the story, because while they were at home sleeping, their son made a horrible decision, and it destroyed their lives and everybody else's lives as well. And so they were not treated as victims when they really in reality were. So I'm not saying that for sure that these parents are victims. They may be involved. Don't get me wrong. We might actually get evidence that they knew all along, or that they did help him escape. They certainly, if they were waiting for him to return and he wasn't returning, gave him enough time to continue going by not quickly telling the police this. But I think that there's a possibility they were just really hoping he'd come back. And then it got to the point where they realized he wasn't, and that they had a major situation and had to let the police know this. And so it is possible. It is absolutely possible. And it's happened before where a parent will, do something to protect their child and go to the extremes of, yes, hiding them, helping them, aiding them, or whatever. So I'm not saying that that's not what happened here. It absolutely could have. What I'm saying is that these people actually might possibly be victims of Brian, and they didn't know anything. And they don't know anything. And they didn't help him. Okay? And I'm coming at this from my personal experience that I have with the relationship that I have built with somebody who was involved in a murder case where it was their child who was the killer. And to see their pain and their confusion and their frustration and really the understanding. Parents see their kids as their babies, right? And actually as babies. I have several children and they're all, young kid ages right now. They're, above 5 years old. But when I look at them, because time flies, all I see is these little babies, these little smushy faced, cute little babies, the giggly, smiley, little toddlers. I don't really like to see them as growing, right? Because then I have to face the reality they are growing and eventually will be adults. But to me, they'll always be my babies, and I'll always look at them and see the babies that I had. And it reminds me of Jim Smith saying that at the memorial. He said, everybody sees this Gabby, but I still see this Gabby, and he pointed to a much younger picture of her. And so these families, I've learned a lot from that. There's this trying to understand how your cute and chunky little baby who you used to pinch their cheeks and feed them grew up and turned into this person who was capable of hurting somebody and hurting them to the point of killing them. And that's really hard to reconcile. And it's a process. There's a sort of grief, if you will. It's a different type of grief where you're just trying to, that you've lost your child because they're going to jail and they're not gone forever, but you still lost them. They'll never sit at the dinner table again for Thanksgiving dinner. They'll never, come over for Christmas. You'll never have to buy them a gift for Christmas and put it under the Christmas tree. There's this loss. There's a loss. And I think so many people have a hard time realizing that, and they just want to just spew hate and judgment. And I witnessed it with the other person that I know personally. And it's unfair. It is. It's unfair. And until you have evidence, I really wish that people would consider this. They were a normal family. when Brian left to go on this trip with Gabby, probably, right? They might have had their own issues like we all do. They may or may not have been divorcing, because that's the rumor, right? They may or may not have had health issues, but they were a family. And then Brian comes back, and within 2 weeks, their whole lives are turned upside down and destroyed. In the years that they should be retiring and relaxing, they're now watching as the whole world hates them, hates their son, and trying to track down their son because he may be involved with the death of his fiancée. And they have to reconcile that. And it's not quick. It's not, boom, you come to that understanding and now you all of a sudden hate your child. And it even might come to the point where they do reconcile that, but they still love him. That's still their son. And you can't just be like, oh, well, you should hate him. You shouldn't support him. You shouldn't go to his trial. No, it's their son. It's their son. Okay? He's living and breathing because of them. And they raised him, and I know we want to blame the parents for how somebody is raised. And you know what? It may be something from his childhood, right? But it may not be. He doesn't strike me as somebody who had the tendency to kill eventually. I think this is more of a crime of passion in the moment of an argument, and he just went really way too far. So I don't know if it's their fault. We don't always have to point the blame elsewhere. If you want to point blame, then you're going to want to point the blame at the person who committed this horrific act. And that would be Brian, if indeed it's proven that Brian did this, which is certainly looking that way, more so than it looks like his parents are involved. There's more evidence pointing to Brian did kill Gabby, far more than there is that his parents had any involvement in her death or covering up and hiding him. So thank you for allowing me to get that out. I hope that you will take it into consideration and put yourself, or try to put yourself, in their position. And I say try because we are so quick to say, if I was them, if I was in that situation, I would do this, and that. When you actually have no freaking idea what you would do, and you can't know what you would do until you're actually in that situation. That's just how it is. So you can sit up on your high horse and say, I would do this and I would do that. But you don't know what you would do. You just don't. And it's just so easy to run our mouths, myself included sometimes, when we just don't know. Okay? We don't know. And I liken this to, before you have children, you think you're going to be the best parent ever. Your kid's always going to be dressed to the nines, and they're going to be quiet in a restaurant, and they're never going to throw temper tantrums in a store, and you're always going to have them in a diaper. They're never going to be allowed to walk around the house naked, etc. And then you have a child. And then you have one. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead. Run around the house naked right now. It's okay. Because it's just different. You're experiencing it. You know what it's like and how exhausting it is and how busy it is and how that, some arguments with a toddler aren't worth it. You just let them do what they want to do. If they want to run around naked, who's it hurting, right? So we can't know. You can't know until you're in that situation what you would do. It's so easy to judge. I am guilty in the past of doing that. As I've aged, I've learned not to do that. And I just want to say this because I know anytime somebody tries to come with an opposing view that's not of the majority, they make accusations towards you. And I remember in the Gannon Stout case that's going on in Colorado, when I would speak up in a group to give a different view or perspective, it was immediately like, you're defending her. Or they would say, is that UT? Meaning Gannon's stepmother, who was arrested for his murder. They thought that I was her, or that I was a family member of hers, just because I was giving a different view. When I wasn't defending her, and I wasn't her. But that's what they do. They automatically assume, because you're not in the majority, that this is what you're doing. You're defending. I'm not defending these parents. Like I said, they could be involved in some way, and it might not have gone as I just said that it did. So all I'm saying is that there's a different view here. There's a different way to look at this and consider other possibilities. So no, I'm not Roberta Laundrie. No, I don't know the Laundrie family. No, I'm not talking to the family. No, I'm not defending the family. No, I don't know anybody at all connected to this family, period, point blank. That's it. So please don't come at me with that, because that's 100% untrue. And then on a final note about the parents, and then I'm just going to end there until we know more information about them or we get more evidence of their involvement. Right now there's a lot of rumors. There's talk of a burner phone that they activated. Who knows if that's true. This camping thing is another rumor going around because of dog. We're going to see how that pans out. It may be something, it may be nothing. But I'm seeing a lot of people say that, if they really were concerned for Brian and he was really missing and they didn't know where he was, why aren't they out there looking for him, and why aren't they making a plea for him? And I really need to address this because it's kind of driving me insane. In other cases, and if you don't follow other cases, you may not know this, when an area is dangerous or it's rough or dense, etc., the law enforcement does not want any family members conducting searches or participating in any searches because they don't want you now going missing or hurt or dead because they want to focus on the person that they're looking for. And they don't need anything like that happening because now they're going to look for you. If you go missing or you get hurt or now you're dead, they have to deal with that, and it interrupts the investigation. And in this particular story, the Carlton Reserve is very dangerous. It's mostly swamp. It's got a lot of alligators. It's been dangerous for the people who are trained, let alone if a family member wanted to help them in that search. So there could be this possibility here that in this story as well, that the law enforcement does not want these parents out there looking. And some people said, okay, well, if they can't look in the Carlton Reserve, why aren't they out looking for him in general? Well, to that I would say, well, where are they supposed to look? If they were under the impression that he went into the Carlton Reserve, where do you expect them to go look? Just drive around aimlessly looking for him? I mean, if they thought he went there and they're searching there, where are they supposed to go looking for him? And then you have to add in the fact that they can barely leave their home without a media circus and everybody freaking out. I mean, they literally lost their minds because the father went to the store for milk the other day. And they were just flabbergasted that these citizens were allowed to leave their home to go get milk. I mean, God forbid. So you really expect them in this circumstance to go out of their home to go look for their son? I mean, come on. And as far as a plea, what are they pleading for? They know that everybody is looking for their son. They know that everybody hates their son. They know that everybody thinks their son killed Gabby Petito. And what are they going to do? They're going to come out and be like, oh, please, please find our son. We're so worried about him. No, they're not going to do that. They know what's going on, and they know the circumstances they're in, and the coming out and pleading for him and his safety and sparing him and all that. You don't do that, okay? You just don't do that. And in this particular circumstance, it's not going to be like other missing children cases where you do see the parents speaking out like Gabby's family did when she was missing. This is a different circumstance, so therefore, you're not going to see that. You're not going to see them out searching, and you're not going to see them making a plea for him. And I also saw some people talking about, why didn't they go to Gabby's memorial or reach out to her parents? Well, one, we don't know if they reached out to her parents. They might have, right? We don't know. So I'm going to go with no, they didn't, because they know that their son might be responsible for their daughter's death. So why would they do that? But they might. We don't know. As far as going to the memorial, absolutely not. That would have been so disrespectful. And not just because they're the parents of the guy who might have killed her, but because it would have turned it into an even more media circus. All the attention would have been off of Gabby and her memory and on the fact that Brian's parents are sitting in the room. So they know that, and they weren't going to do that to this family, obviously. I don't think that it speaks to that they hated Gabby or they didn't give a shit about Gabby. I think it just speaks to they were not going to interrupt this girl's memorial service by having their presence there. And I also wanted to say that there was this man who shot a police officer in Florida just a few days ago. He is on the run, and they're hunting him down a great deal. They really want this man because he killed a police officer. And his father wrote a note basically sending his condolences and regrets to the family of the deputy. And he goes on to say, like, you know, that his son has a lot of problems and he's not trying to make excuses or defend him. And he talks about how he has PTSD and depression and seizures and this and that basically all these things built up into something that might have led to why he did what he did. And at the end, it was a beautiful letter. And at the end, he wrote, "I had resigned myself to the fact that he might overdose or take his own life. I never dreamed he would take somebody else's life. There's no excuse for what he did, and he will get what he deserves, one way or another. I'm not going to be a hypocrite and plead for his life. He was well aware of the consequences." And he continues, and then the thing ends. And it stuck out to me in the context of Gabby's story. The parents involved the police when Brian was missing. Yes, it was a few days later, but they did. And then they helped with the DNA. And then the lawyer gave the statement saying that they want the FBI to find Brian, and the parents are aware that Brian has an arrest warrant and that he will be arrested if they find him. And this person here is saying that, you know, he doesn't want to be a hypocrite and plead for his son's life. Right? Because he knew what he was doing, and therefore he has to face the consequences, and he knew what those consequences were. And clearly Brian knew what the consequences were, or he wouldn't have fled. So there also can be an element here that the parents are not going to come out and plead for Brian, right? Because they don't think that he should come home, that he does need to come be found and face the consequences, because he knew the consequences of his actions. So I found that interesting. And others say, well, why aren't they out there saying, you know, Brian, turn yourself in? We're making a lot of assumptions, okay? We're making a lot of assumptions. We're assuming that Brian is able to see what's happening on the news. We're assuming that. We don't know if he can. We don't know if he does have a burner phone. We don't know if he's in a location where there's a television. We don't know if he's visiting bars and restaurants that have television. We have no idea. So even if they did that, I mean, what's that going to do? You know, and most likely he's hiding out somewhere in an area he doesn't have access to those things. And we don't know. And the next day or so, maybe even today, they might actually finally decide to do a press conference. They just haven't done it yet. They might have full hope that the FBI is going to locate him. But again, they now know that when the FBI does find him, it's not going to be a drop-off at the home. He's going to be arrested. So, anyways, I've been going on for an hour now. That was the update for yesterday. It's just late because I'm putting it out this morning, and then just kind of some of the things that I wanted to talk about that have happened and have been said, and something that I really wanted to get off my chest, and I'm really hoping that at least one person out there needed to hear that or may take it into consideration and give these parents a little bit of benefit of doubt for the time being until things are starting to show that there might not be any involvement. And you know what? Like I said, they could be. And if so, then at that point in time, have at them. You know, because that's horrible. And there's really no excuse for that. And justification for going that far as to want to help your son hide or take off. So when we get to that point, then yeah, I might join you and say, oh my God, these parents are horrific. But until then, I'm just not going to do that. And to talk about him being on the run, I kind of think this is interesting because, other people have done the same where they run, they fled and what have you. I just don't know what his end game is here. What does he think is going to happen? That he's going to go on the run and at some point he's just going to be able to resurface and go on living life? At some point you can't run anymore and you are going to be found. You need resources and means to do such. So he's just prolonging that, in the inevitable. So I really don't know what his end game is in all of this, if he's alive out there on the run, because they're going to find you, dude. One way or another, they're going to find you. It may take some time, but they will eventually. And so I think to the parents and think, why would they help him go and hide? Because, again, what would their end game be in that? Why would they want him to be running instead of just going to jail? Because at this point, their life is destroyed. They are not a family unit anymore, and life will never be the same again, where he's walking up to their front door and coming inside from his Mustang and grabbing a drink from the refrigerator. That's long gone. So, they think like, oh, we'll help him hide, and then at some point when everything dies down, we'll go find him and then we'll go somewhere. I don't know. These people are also grandparents. Brian has a sister who has children. So, the idea that they might flee with him and go to another country to live, they'd be leaving behind their other daughter and grandchildren. And would they do that for their son? They love their daughter probably just as much and their grandchildren. So, I don't know. We just have to wait and see. We have no idea. The police have not given us, and FBI have not really given us much. We don't know many facts at this point. We know Gabby is deceased and it was homicide. We know that he's on the run. We know that supposedly he left his cell phone and wallet, and I do think that's a fact, because I don't think that was said unless the police have those in their custody, and it was the lawyer who said that. So we don't really know a whole lot. We don't even know how Gabby died to even talk and theorize what transpired between the couple, and if the fight happened out where her body was found, or if he dragged her out there, or if this was a multiple spot crime scene. We don't know. This is all just a guessing game at this point and assumptions. So we just got to hang tight. We got to hold on. We got to be patient. We got to wait and see how everything unfolds. And at the time that I'm recording this, it's now 9 o'clock because I had to pause a few times because of my children. But what I'm seeing at this point, there is nothing this morning to report to you. Except, hold on, let me see this. It actually says there is an update. And it's about the relation to the Dog the Bounty Hunter discovery. It says, from Pinellas County, we are not conducting an investigation at Fort DeSoto. We are unaware of any confirmed sightings of Brian, and we will continue to refer you to Northport PD. So this is kind of strange, because Dog the Bounty Hunter said that he did contact the local authorities over by Fort DeSoto Park to tell them that they believe Brian was at this location, and they're saying that they have not been made aware of any confirmed sightings of Brian. Now, to Dog's credit, he did say that that it wasn't that he found him there, it was that he said that they went there on those 2 weekends. So that could be why they're saying there's no confirmed sightings of him at this location. But they do say they're not actually investigating it or looking in that park. So again, we just got to wait and see what transpires today and go from there, because that's all I'm seeing at this point. And hope that Brian is found soon, or that we get more information. And I will wait for the day and see if anything unfolds and come back to you later tonight with any more updates. So until next time, I'll see you soon.